Board games, board games, board games. I might be talking about board games, but we're not gonna shout. Today we're going to talk about online sales and how we have won some things and sometimes we have failed. And we have done a bit of this and that, making new games, and we will have a chat about all the things that we're doing, like pledge managers, because this is something that has lots of features that you might not think of, and we will hopefully say something that will help you if you're also coming our way. Board games and online sales and pledge managers is what we're talking about. Sales and pledge managers. We're not gonna now. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez, 10 a.m.-ish time for Bezzy Beats and Boardgame Blether. With me today is Jessica Metheringham, our regular
Hello.
guest. Thank you for joining, Jess.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here, as always.
I think this is the first time I've actually asked you this live on the show. How are you?
I'm okay. I mean, I'm, the usual amount of tired, which in my life is quite tired. But, I'm generally okay. It is sunny outside, but not absolutely boiling yet. Been watering the plants this morning, so things are okay.
So you've got children, you've got your political work, you're also like an active member of the Quaker community, and you're also
I'm
making
pulled
board
in so
games
many
on top of that.
directions.
Not just one board game, you're kind of overseeing the tail end of Library Labyrinth. You've got like the colouring and stuff, and you've got a couple of prototypes that like completely new things that you've tried recently. And maybe
Exactly.
that brings us to what have we been doing recently? Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. What, except for the online sales bits and pledge managers, which we'll come to, what's is a big part of your life right now?
Well, those things are definitely not highlights or achievements, I can tell you that. Quite the opposite. What have I been doing at the moment? Well, on Monday night, I had a virtual playtest of a game which I thought would break, and it didn't. So I'm feeling very happy about that. I mean, that was a sort of a fairly simple kids game where you've got lots of campers, and you've got your own little campsite with various pitches around it, little camping spots around it, and you've got to put your tents there in the spots, but you've got to do it in a way which gets you the most points. And it didn't break, and and the others were like, okay, this is this is fun. This is a collection of solid mechanics, I think was what it was said. I mean, perhaps it didn't quite have that extra little something that makes it a really good
It's
game.
interesting because, I mean, it's all contextual, isn't it? It's like it all depends on why are you making this thing.
Yeah.
Because if you're making this for intellectual curiosity or self-gratification, I think that these are worthy reasons to make games. So I've taken things to playtest, being like, okay, this is probably never going to be a thing that I release, but it feels like a nice little thing. I'm just want to learn more about it. But yeah, I think like every day there's like more than 30 games being released, and in that world, it's not. If you want your game to actually attract a devout audience, to be financially successful, it's not enough to just say, okay, this is as good as everything else. It's got to have something about it which is better, which is exceptional. But maybe you'll find that along the way.
Absolutely. What I feel I've got with this game is I've got a really good foundation. That I've built the scaffolding and the framework and everything works, but it's just like, okay, right, what do I put in there to make it, to make it special? What's the little bit that's going to actually make it shine? Because at the moment it doesn't really have that, and maybe I need to take a few things away before I find what's special, but it's a really good start, and it's really good to go along to something, with a game that you think is going to break, and then be like, oh, it didn't. It actually works quite well.
And
So
sometimes it's worth thinking about, why did you think it was going to break? And what was your wrong assumption? Because even though that's a delight, maybe that will give you information and be a lesson of itself.
yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point, because when you're playing a cooperative game, which this isn't, but when you're playing a cooperative game, then it's fairly easy to sort of go, okay, right, well, people will work together, and can be almost like a solo game, but with
Mm-mm-mm.
cooperative elements. You're sort of, you're splitting a solo game up into multiple players almost. But when it's something which is competitive, then I think the thing which is difficult to work out is how other people are going to react. I always find it quite difficult to say, okay, right, well, if this is what happens, how are other people going to interact with each other? So that's the mystery element for me, and that's the bit where I was like, oh, will this work? But it did, so that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it wasn't one specific thing which you thought would fail. It sounds like just
Nah.
a general, sense of bad feeling. And hello, Manuel, it's lovely to see you, who says, hello, when I playtest a game for the first time, I don't expect the game to work from the beginning to end. It's okay if the session doesn't reach the end, as long as you learn something.
Exactly.
If the game works, then yay! If it's not, then that's okay. Yeah, such a
Yeah.
lovely sentiment. I would kind of agree. I mean, like, actually, no, it depends entirely on the game for me. Sometimes I am able to kind of playtest it in my mind and imagine how things will work. And the first time that we played Seize the Power, I mean, it's changed, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't changed massively. The fundamental structure isn't totally different. And yes, there's a lot that's changed, the auction mechanisms, the details of the game. I mean, in the last couple of months, I've put houses in there, but we worked the entire day on it, and like we'd been chatting for a few days, like in the preceding weeks or even a couple of months before that, and that had given us a lot of time to kind of think about, okay, what's needed here. And I do think that sometimes if you do have here's an idea, let's get it, then sure, there's whole swathes of it that it doesn't matter exactly how you score. Let's not worry about that. You're getting points somehow, and let's hand wave it and just see what people are incentivized to do and what incentivizes people to do the fun thing, what's actually enjoyable. But yeah, for me, it's incredibly game specific.
Yeah, I agree.
So, other highlights, I want to say that yesterday, talking about new games, I was going over Seize the Power with Tiz Creel, my co-designer, and Rose Atkinson, developer at Inside the Box, and Luke Everson, I want to say, and also Peter Blankhorn, who's the kind of main person at Inside the Box. It was a quiet office because of the train strikes, and so people who didn't absolutely have to be there weren't there. You might have seen me outside the office, and at that time, Rose and Tiz were yet to arrive. We went upstairs, we played a game, the same version that had been at Now Play This, had a few discussions about what exactly was needed, and I think that the version at Now Play This, it was fundamentally a stronger version. The auctions were essentially scrapped to be the simplest possible auction that there could be. So it's just a blind reveal, everyone reveals at once. If you win the auction, spend money. If you don't win the auction, you don't spend money. And there is a tiny bit of gamesmanship in there, because if the second highest bid is 7 and you've ended up bidding 12, there's a little bit of, I overbid by 5 money, especially if you've got the card that says you win ties. And then it's very much all about the negotiation and the asymmetric powers, for those who don't know. And we did add some tweaks. We made a few changes for a second playthrough, adding more houses, making sure that, look, there is a horrible housing market, and it's part of the game that if you run out of houses, well, you're kind of scuppered. And if you're out of jobs, you're kind of scuppered. But you have to balance the harsh reality with like the message that the game is trying to portray with the commercial viability, where Peter is saying, yes, even the worst character, you kind of, even as a first-time player, you want to feel like you have some chance of winning. So we added in all these hidden objectives. They're not variable for different players. And so we are, yes, Finnemore is a worse character no matter what. There's no denying that. And everyone else, it's on the group to make better deals with Finnemore, to maybe even give them some gifts, to do things that, hey, Finnemore, if I do these things, your thing gives me a bit of money. You know what? With someone else, I would want the majority of the money, but with this rule, I'll give you a slightly bigger percentage of the money. And with the hidden objectives, there's a lot to tweak and a lot of numbers to shape, but Tis is off doing that. We're going to meet up in 2 weeks. Hopefully have a playtest if anyone's in London and would like to meet up on Tuesday, I think the 5th, come over to my place. And I mean, if I've never heard of you before, I might want to kind of have a quick chat on the phone to make sure you're a reasonable human before giving you my address and stuff. But, if you are interested, then let me know. And I'm really excited to playtest it. Also with 5 players, I think it lasted just under an hour, which I'm really happy with, because before with 4 players, it was kind of 90 minutes. So I'm really proud of managing to cut it down to what seems like the essence.
That seems like a good sort of time. Having about an hour for 5 players, that feels like a good time for a game to last.
Good morning, Alex. Also, we did work out, Tiz and I, a cooperative method of playing the game afterwards, and for like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 players, just so that it can span from 1 to at least 5, probably 6, although I imagine even 6 might be... I imagine it would work with 7, but it's going to depend on the time and the players and whether people are willing to spend 2.5 hours on the game, which I know some people will be like, yeah, absolutely, I want a 7-player negotiation game that lasts 2.5 hours. If that's you, then I think it's going to be really strong. But if you want something a bit shorter, then I think people will probably generally say, yeah, 4 or 5 is like a good player count, but like the more people you have, the more interpersonal chances for allies and stuff, which is interesting. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how it develops. What else have you done in the recent past, Jess? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Recently, we had a party on Sunday for my now 4-year-old. So my youngest one has now turned 4. So we had a party. So I've been eating a lot of cake. In fact, I've been making a lot of cake, and then I've been eating a lot of cake. We had a cake which was... so my youngest requested the Eiffel Tower as a cake.
Wow.
Which is interesting. Yeah.
That's like a very tall, pointy pyramid. If it was like a more flatter pyramid, that would be easier, but that's a bit challenging.
Well, it wasn't quite as good as that, but he really liked it. Basically, I had a nice easy bake. Basically, I made a 4-sided pyramid from sponge and just slathered it with blue icing, with another cake underneath, which had green icing with it, and then I had basically lots of those matchmakers. That's what they are. The long, thin chocolate. The long, thin chocolate things, and I just sort of made
girders.
Yeah, I just sort of made an Eiffel Tower shape with those on each side. It was quite rough and ready, but it was recognizably the Eiffel Tower. So I was like...
Honestly, for it to be recognizably the Eiffel Tower in 3D, I think is an achievement, because as Manuel says, yeah, that is on hard mode.
Yeah. But it was very tasty. It was very tasty. I mean, basically, my thing with cakes is... well, my nearly 6-year-old, whose party is in a couple of weeks' time, so she turned 6 the day you're having your playtest, the 5th of July. She has requested a cake which is the Billy Goat's Gruff. which actually should be fairly straightforward. Just do 2 cakes, one which is more green than the other, and probably those matchmakers again, or maybe chocolate fingers to make a bridge between them, and then just have some little, paper cutout goats and a troll. It'll be fine. Get a whole load of jelly beans to be, I don't know, flowers on the grass or something. There you go. A cake.
That sounds amazing. Now, I'm not going to give my regular shout out to the cake-themed TV show, but I will say that I'm trying to look to make sure that I don't show any confidential information. I have packaged a few of these. This is officially a small parcel. I put it into an envelope, but there is a lot of stuff inside. Yeah. And I packed a few things, which I'm going to send off later. But yeah, that's the end of my recent highlights. Hey!
Hey, look what I've got!
Well, when did you
I
get
have
it?
a parcel. Oh, quite a while ago, actually. This was
still
probably
not
one of the
opened
first.
it?
Well, I've still not opened it because I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. So.
But you've not seen the comic.
Right, I'm going to open it now.
We're having a live unboxing of.
A live unboxing of
be sure
Bezzy's parcel.
to not show any confidential information.
Da da.
So, hey.
Beetroot.
So a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your beetroots. The red edition. And then on the other.
Here we go. It's the comic.
It's a little comic,
it's very
and
exciting.
When I was sending that, I did think, I really should. I mean, I did see you. Did I not give you like a game? Like I could have given you one so easily, given that we were literally sleeping in the same room.
That is a very good point. And did we? No. Never mind.
But it got to you, and hopefully you'll enjoy that, and I hope you'll have lots of fun with it.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Let's talk about online sales, the main topic, or comics. Thank you.
Comics are brilliant.
Yeah, go on, compliment me first. Compliment me. Well, I'm just
trying to think. I mean, comics are brilliant, but also having little thank you notes. I mean, because that's essentially what this is. When you've made a sale and when you've sent something out in the post, then having something which is just a little bit extra, a thank you note, a comic in this case, it's really nice. And this is just a very simple, straightforward, this is how you do it. It's got loads of cool pictures in it. It's got something about radishes, and beetroots. The titles are ridiculous. Yes, the titles are ridiculous, but it's just really nice to have something where you're like, this is a cute little thing. So yes, little comics are brilliant.
And so it's basically about the personalization and just to make it clear, I don't give that to everyone who buys my stuff. It's just to the people who back my Kickstarters and people who back my Kickstarters and get physical stuff through the post. Mm-hmm. And there will come a day when I am somewhere else and I am doing Kickstarters and I might not be able to fulfill them myself, in which case I might not be able to, illustrate all the envelopes and I might not be able to put little comics in. But, that will be maybe a year or so in the future. But until then, I enjoy doing that because it's writing the name and it makes it feel more real. But going to online sales and Kickstarters, because that's what I'm kind of trying to encourage here, to support, to say, yes, everyone, please. Look, the people who back the Kickstarter, it's kind of like you get all the money up front for the printing, which is brilliant. And then it's like, I get the support. I understand that people really want it. And it's like, really nice having to do it all at once, because especially if I've got, let's say, with Chris, we can post about 100-ish things in a day. And that means that it's more efficient for us to be posting like 300 things over the course of like a month rather than to be posting 3 things every week, because those few things, especially for me, like okay, I need to get that, I need to work out where that thing is, I need to get that off the shelf, and that sound, especially if you've got a horribly disorganized place, which is like lots of boxes and stuff, which really should have been taken out of boxes and organized, but maybe I don't quite have the shelving system that I would ideally like, where it's like, yeah, there are some games and there are some order of my games, and yeah,
Mhm.
and they're all kind of in a small room, like on top of each other. And every time it's okay, let me try and work out where that is again. But online sales is the more general thing. Why are online sales compared to compared to selling at a convention? I mean, selling at a convention is brilliant, but why are online sales brilliant? Why is Kickstarter and Pledge Manager and selling through your own shop, why is this a brilliant thing, Jess?
Well, clearly selling at a convention, it's quite straightforward. You pick up something, you give it to someone else, they give you money in return. But obviously, I mean, the number of people who come to a convention compared to the number of people, who are out there who are interested in board games is going to be quite small. And the fact is that while, we might be going to conventions here in the UK, we're not going to fly over to the US for all of those conventions. I mean, for a start, it's an awfully long way. It's a lot of money. But even going to Essen, for example, that's quite a lot of money. We can't go to all of those conventions. The other option would be physical shops. But again, those shops only have a certain amount of space. They may not see getting our games in. That may not be their priority. They have to think about what's going to sell the most out of there. So so they are limited on physical space as well, which basically means that we have to sell online. In order to get to the most number of games to the most number of people, we have to sell online. Plus, it's also just fairer to people, because it's not quite fair to people to say, oh, well, you've got to come to a convention to get this game. You've got to travel here, you've got to whatever. Whereas actually we can just, put it in the post and send it to them. But then that opens a whole can of worms about, okay, how do you do that online? Which I think we're going to talk about later, because there's the sort of there's the slow online sale of through an online store. There's the Kickstarter sale, which, yes, Kickstarter is there to see whether there's enough interest for the sales, but it's also there as a way to get the money. Because I've sold a few games, for example, I've sold a few games in the past which have been basically done by email. I've said, okay, here's my email address. Send me an email if you want a game. Then I send them a message back which says, here's the price of the game, here's the price of the shipping, here are my bank details, here's the account you'd make the transfer to. And actually, for people in the UK, some people are like, actually, I'd rather do that than PayPal. I'd rather just do a quick transfer. So it's different methods for different people. So, when you talk about selling online, there's so many different ways to do it.
And a quick hello to Finchy. It's lovely to see you. Good morning. And I agree that, yes, absolutely, it makes it more accessible and more. It allows you to engage with more people. Alex says bank transfers are brilliant. Somewhat. I find them difficult because I don't do online banking, so I have to go into the bank, and it's a bit of a pain. I would rather just go give my card details, but yeah,
different things for different people, and the fact that we have them is really good.
Try and get my passport sorted out again, so that then I can get a new bank account and a joint bank account. Apparently the US doesn't do bank transfers. Wow.
It is incredibly difficult to get money from a US bank. I mean, basically, that's why PayPal exists.
Wow.
Supposing it was just the UK and, and Europe and whatever, it would be absolutely fine. But yeah, basically, the US is a good 20 years behind the rest of the world in terms of banking.
Okay. And apparently that's why they have Cash App and PayPal and Venmo and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back a little, yes, this is a brilliant thing. Absolutely agreed. Online sales allow you to sell stuff to more people. More people are able to buy the stuff. It does obviously have the slight downside that you have the shipping costs, but it has the
Mhm.
upside that you don't have to pay to be there. And
Yeah.
people can watch the video. Hopefully, you'll have a couple of videos that, and I think that's important, that people get a sense of what the game is, because at a
Yeah.
convention, you can try the game out. And on my online shop, shall shall I talk about my situation with my online
Yes.
shop? Okay,
Yes.
so if I actually, I'm going to open it up in a new window. So big stuffbybez.bigcartel.com is my shop currently. And if we look at it, we can see that there are 5 different items, even though I have kind of more than 5 games. The reason for that is that I'm on the free plan. So you go
Mhm.
here and you can buy a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements. A game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. A game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips, beetroots, or radishes, and
Things.
Dice and Ink, and Yogi or Yogi Guru. Again, it would make more sense for Yogi and Yogi Guru to be 2 separate things, for sure, because they are 2 very different games.
Mhm.
I would absolutely encourage everyone to buy Yogi. I would encourage, well, as long as you're in the market for a silly physical game, I would only encourage people to buy Yogi Guru once you've already played it and you're like, yeah, this is good, and I'm ready to go up to the next level of difficulty. I'm willing to be creative, and people aren't going to play to win, they're going to play in the spirits of the game. So that's when the wild cards really come in and can do a good job. Now, the
Mhm.
reason I chose Big Cartel, and I do want to give a shout out to Big Cartel up here, is that Big Cartel doesn't charge me a monthly fee. It's
Mhm.
just a flat percentage of all the sales. So I think it's less than 3%. So
Oh wow, that's really good.
yeah, I can't remember it exactly, but I get a good chunk of the money. And the downside of the free plan is you're only allowed to sell 5 things. But for example, if we go into Yogi or Yogi Guru, it's like, okay, what does this mean? You go down and there's Yogi English, Yogi French, Yogi Guru English, and then you can actually can dedicate them if you want. So,
Mhm.
like, really, it should be Yogi is one thing, and then you select the English or the French or the dedication afterwards. And then similarly, if you go in here, then boom, you can get all the different versions. And um, yeah, is that only 5? That's um, yeah, that's just the custom card. I think maybe that's not
Mm.
clear. Yeah, I think I should make that more clear that that's just the card. It's not doesn't also include the game. My intention is for people to add the card and then the game separately. But again, that's so if I pay £10 a month, which I'm going to start doing at the end of this month, then
Mhm.
I would be allowed to have 50 items, and I would be allowed to have stock management, which then means that I could say, I've got one of this item, I've got one of this item. And so that then
Mhm.
allows me to sell original artwork. And just because I've got less than 50 games, I've got a lot of games at this point, but it's still less than 50, which means that maybe 20 of those slots take some, and each item can have 5 photos, which really shows off the thing nicely. And I think that's super important. And I think it's also important to, I don't know if I'll
Mm.
be able to do this, but when people are able to embed videos or have a link to extra information so you can, but even having 5 pictures so you get a good sense of this is what the game is. And hey, this is a place to have the extra information with the extra videos. I think that's a really
Mm.
good thing when you go to a shop, and my shop currently, if you come here and you know exactly what you want to buy, you will be able to buy it. But if you go in and you're like, hey, I'm interested in stuff by Bez, but I don't know exactly what's going on here, there's no elements of, hey, here's the thing, and I've got just so many games now that it makes sense for me now. The 5 items is just insufficient. It makes sense for me to try and sell a game about stuffing balloons as a team without talking, but it's a card game, there are no actual balloons, as an example, and also the other games which have ridiculously long, well, not, okay, they are kind of ridiculously long. Okay, anyway.
They're good ridiculous, though.
And yeah, you do get a better margin through direct sales than going through distribution. Frankly, that's the reason why I am able to sell the first editions for £5. There's no way that I would be able to do an RRP of £5 for any of my Bezzy bargain bags. The RRP, just going through shops, has to be £7.50, which is why I've decided that my sale price for the second edition Bezzy bargain bags, it's going to be £7.50, because then I can say to shops, hey, if you want to buy it, I am able to give you the typical percentage. And Manuel says, I'm constantly surprised by how you can say the complete game titles in flowing sentences without running out of breath. Thank you very much.
Me too. I'm always surprised by that. So one of the things about selling online, which I find quite difficult, so I haven't gone with Big Cartel, but looking at that, I might. One of the things is about selling to people who are in Europe, particularly the EU, because of course you need an IOS number, IOSS, you need a number for doing that. Now I am personally prepared to pay a fair amount of money not to have to fill in any sort of registration paperwork, because I completely hate paperwork and I get myself in a complete fix over it, which actually we'll come back to in Pledge Managers. A little bit of foreshadowing there. Pledge Managers. But, there is that problem about, what about selling to the European Union? Because, of course, there are extra things that you need to jump through. So I have some of my things selling through Etsy, which does give you one of those numbers. Yep. Excellent. There you go. So I'm selling some of these through Etsy, where if somebody buys one of these, then I can give them the Etsy number, which covers sending into the EU. Now, I haven't actually tested this yet, so I don't actually know if it works, but theoretically the possibility is there, because I don't really make that many sales on here. This is basically people who wanted to buy something and haven't been able to buy it from me directly, or people who find it randomly on here. Most sales I make directly through my website, which is basically by them sending me an email and me sending them back an email saying, here's the price, here's the PayPal account, just transfer the money to PayPal and then I'll send you the thing. And that actually works really well for me, and it is a very old school approach, but
it's interesting because that seems like a lot of work, and I got to the point with my print and play stuff where I was feeling like, I'm happy for people to have it at a cheap price. I'm very happy for if someone's on a low budget, is unable to get my games, like normally, okay, I'll sell you the print and play files for £1. And what I even want to do, actually, I almost forgot about this for the Kickstarter, which I was trying to do a very quick job of writing all the details for Kickstarter so I can hopefully get it accepted so that people can start, adding themselves to the pre-campaign thing. I'm happy to sell at a reduced price of community copies, as they call it in the RPG world, where some people pay more and some people pay less, and it's entirely down to what people are able to afford. I'm down with that, but at the same time, I do want to think about my own hassle, frankly. And if every time if I'm getting a lot of people buying the print and play files for £1, which is totally reasonable, but then I have to send the email and find the files and then send it over and then work out, okay, and I don't have a copy-paste message to just send, which would make my
Mm.
life easier if I had that. And so what I'm planning to do is to, well, I've stopped selling it on my own web shop, and I'm planning to move over to Itch, because with someone else on Board Game Geek suggested that I go to Print and Play Arcade, so I might ask them if they want my, well, it's two games, a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after it makes noises, as well as a game about wee whimsical creatures, the original one, a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some makes noises. Anyway, so if they want those games there, then sure, it's another revenue stream, it's another way that people can find you, and it's not like it has to be exclusive. And I guess that's the same thing with Etsy, where it's not like you do this or that, but you do have to make sure that you can manage it. I do notice at Etsy, you get the reviews, it's far more of a community, and then you go up to the top and then it's taking you instantly out of your stuff. So none of this is to do with Descent Games. Whereas on Big Cartel, sure, it doesn't look like there's a lot there, but you click there and it's
and it goes directly
just
to your
the shop, and
Yeah.
then it just keeps you on this shop. It's not like there's anything else to distract you. You came here to buy stuff by me. Well, you are not going to be distracted by stuff by other people. And there is an element of, okay, are people going to trust you? Because presumably Etsy, for some people, has an element of trust. If it has those reviews, in theory, if you didn't know me, like if you hadn't ever heard of me, if I wasn't on social media, if someone else pops up this stuff, then maybe you'd be right to think, oh, who is this person? Maybe I don't know them. And you do need to think about these things. But hopefully I've been making games and, for quite a few years, and people know me through social media, and like you see videos of me on, like, when I'm at a convention, actually at UK Games Expo, I wasn't that fussed about reviews of my games. What I really wanted was reviews of my stuff in general, kind of interviews, and just to talk through my things, because yes, I want to have a bit of renown, yes, as a designer, but also as a trustworthy person. And hello, Matt, it is lovely to see you. And I think that, Matt, someone else who came to UK Games Expo, and apparently I saw pictures of their balloon, that it still exists, which is quite a while on. How many days is that? Like 3 weeks? That's quite impressive. But they had a balloon full of balloons. It was nothing else, just balloons in the balloons. But I feel like hopefully people trust me. And so, Big Cartel works for me. I get a lower percent. I mean, they take a lower percentage. I get a higher percentage. And do you have any tips for me as I move into totally retooling the things? I've got the opportunity to take 5 photos. I think that's going to be quite important, like the quality of those photos. I mean, I think the photos will need to be a similar orientation just to make it look a bit nicer. And clearly this is a bit higgledy-piggledy with some maybe square is like, just make everything square would be a simple way to, And
my suggestion would be to make everything the same size, and to make everything the same size, but also the fact that some of them are very colorful. So Dyson Ink is colorful, and Yogi and Yogi Guru are both very colorful. So I think, and those really stand out. Now, of course, with some of your cards, you can't, there's less color on them, and that's fine. But I think actually what you've done there with the game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your vegetables, whichever vegetables they might be, that I think works quite well, where you've got the creature, here in the foreground, presumably that's standing on a pint glass or something, and then you've got, the others underneath it. That I think
standing on one of these bottles.
So I mean, that I think looks better and looks nicer. So I like that. But you're absolutely right. Making the pictures all the same size would have a really significant effect.
So you think that having Yeah, I mean, I could have done the title, but I'm actually trying. Yeah, I don't have. Oh,
Mm.
hold on, give me just 10 seconds. It was slightly out of reach for my headphones, so
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, the front covers aren't like the most exciting, and so it feels like. Um, do you think that that style of image is the best hero image that I can have for the Bezzy bargain bag type things?
I mean, that does work. The other thing you could try would be having more things than just cards. So having a shot of a table where you've got maybe some people's hands, maybe a couple of mugs of tea, a bowl of fruit or something, where it's
Mm,
clearly a game in progress. And that would, possibly bring the rest of the color then. Like if it's
mm.
a nice wood
Or
table or if
maybe some
it's,
like
yeah.
beetroots just as an artsy shot, because
Yeah.
yeah, put in
Yeah,
a bunch of
actually.
beetroots.
That would be cool. Yes. Yes. And then, I mean, just as long as the rest of the pictures show, the game as it is, and show detail, then actually having a cool shot of the game being played right there would be a very good cover. Yeah, because actually people want to know what the game looks like when it's being played. They don't just want to know what all the cards look like.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be one of the 5 shots. But the question
Mm,
in my mind is which photo should be the,
yeah.
because only one of them can be on this thing. Um,
Yeah. My
Manuel
suggestion would be
says,
that it's the most colorful one. Oh,
I like
yes.
photos where you can see a hand of cards being held in first person. So presumably that's
Mm,
only if you ever hold a hand of cards in first person. Like, so actually in
mm,
this thing, normally are grabbing with one hand and holding cards with the other. So if I had that, and then I got Chris to take a photo while I kind of pose with my 2 hands,
mm.
that might work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That would be cool.
I like that. Thank you very much for all the tips. And now maybe it's time to move on to pledge managers. And no, we
Pledge
haven't already
managers.
discussed this. You're right in time. So Matt says, for pledge managers, it seems like the main use of them is add-ons and shipping which hasn't been charged during the campaign. Now, you can do add-ons on Kickstarter directly, which might mean that some people don't need to use a pledge manager. Absolutely true, Matt. Do you have what's your situation? I'll let you start off this discussion.
Pledge managers. Pledge managers. So I've done 4 different Kickstarters, 2 of which were for very small things. So they were for my Christmas cards and my Valentine's cards, and the other which were for Disarm the Base, and then most recently Library Labyrinth. Now, for Disarm the Base, that was fairly simple. We were selling copies of the game, we were selling bags, and we were also selling some little badges, some button badges. And so that was fairly simple. You could buy, there were, I think there were sort of 7 possibly pledge levels, which were basically combinations of these, 1 game, 2 games, 1 game plus bag, etc. There were, I think, 2 people who messaged me and said, well, I want to buy something which isn't in this combination. So I think somebody wanted to buy the game with the badges, but not with the bag. So I said, oh, well, put in an extra £5, because that was the cost of the badges, and that's fine. I'll just send it to you. And so that was resolved quite easily just by emailing back and forth. And yeah, it's a little bit of extra work, but there were only 2 people who wanted that. And that was absolutely fine. So shipping costs for that were all included with the Kickstarter. Shipping costs for the cards were all included with the Kickstarter as well. So I didn't use any pledge managers for any of those things. Now, Library Labyrinth is a significantly larger project. The actual game is the same, a similar size to Disarm the Base. So it's here. It's
Let me
the
make you
actual
bigger so
game.
you can rotate it around.
Ta-da! So Library Labyrinth is the box. The box is 19 centimeters by 19 centimeters, and it contains enough stuff that it's going to weigh about 750, maybe 800 grams. You know, the prototypes, you know, well, when it's packaged up, rather, you know, the prototypes are weighing in at 600 and something. You know, that was the same as Disarm the Base. When that was all packaged up, then that was somewhere between 750 and 800 grams, you know, which is absolutely fine. You know, fits in very nicely to a box. You know, that was great. You know, you could get 3 of them just fitting into a box for less than 2 kilos, you know, because the
Brilliant,
actual,
because for those who don't know,
exactly.
2 kilos is the cut-off. So, like, if it's first class, the price does increase up to 2 kilos.
Yep.
But if it's second class, then whether it's 100 grams or 2 kilos, it costs exactly the same within the UK.
Which is brilliant. Now, we did have add-ons there. So we have 4 different products that we're selling. You know, we have the game, we have one type of tote bag, we have another type of tote bag, we have a set of postcards. Now, to be honest, we might actually fulfill the postcards just ourselves completely separately, because it's 5 A6 postcards. So actually, everybody who's got a postcard, we might just be like, yeah, we're just going to send you the pack of postcards through the post. Yes, it costs us an extra £1 to send it through the post. I mean, you know, for those people in the UK, you know, we might just do it, you know, now separately because it's easier. But, you know, we'll come to that later. We'll work out whether that works later. But we do have an awful lot of different combinations of these things. You know, we've got people who have up to 3 games. You know, so we have people who have 1 game, 2 games, or 3 games. We have people who have one of the bags.
That I'm hearing, like, is the issue that you didn't set up add-ons in the initial thing?
We did set up add-ons. We set them up, but we didn't put in the shipping costs. And we deliberately didn't do that because as soon as you've got some add-ons, then you've either got to add them on for free in terms of shipping, which wasn't necessarily going to be the case, because each of these tote bags is like, you know, 350, 400 grams. So if somebody gets, you know, so say somebody gets 3 games, then they add on a bag, then it's suddenly pushed it into a different shipping category. But Kickstarter doesn't realize that. I mean, Kickstarter basically doesn't let you add them on in that way.
Need a really clever thing to be able to essentially put in the weights of everything and say, okay, if it's above 2 kilos, then start charging a bit more. And obviously, internationally, it's going to increase per each thing. And look,
which is exactly what Pledge Manager does. Yeah, so that's exactly what a Pledge Manager does, and that's why we have to use that. Now, the trouble, so Kickstarter itself should really include those Pledge Manager tools. So, there's no reason why it can't. I've looked around at the back end of GameFound and Backend.
By virtue of just having the add-ons, but in setting up the thing this morning, it's like, okay, how much does another copy of a game about cute comical creatures that are a game about comical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises? How much would that cost me to ship, assuming they're already buying something physical? Well, if they're already buying something physical, then the increase isn't that much for the first 3 copies. And then for the 4th copy, like if they buy 5 copies, like so it's no longer into a large letter or a small parcel, whatever, then I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? At that point, I'm just going to subsidize it because they've started buying enough stuff that I don't want to discourage them to buy more stuff. I want to encourage them to buy more stuff. So there is a little bit of psychology there. And that's, what Alex is saying. I suppose the cost of the add-ons should cover the extra postage, but then at the same time, if you want to do a good deal, like it, depending on the price of the thing and depending on your margins for that item, it might actually end up that, especially if the shipping costs change dramatically, it might be that you end up losing money on that 5th item. Now here, I've got enough of a margin that it's not like that, but it's
yeah.
So
So
We've
yeah,
had a
so
couple of questions
essentially,
that I
yeah.
noticed we did forget. I didn't bring up. Alex says Etsy's fees are considerable. Can you say what percentage they are, Jess?
So I just sold something for where the price that they paid was £11, and I got £9.50 back. So yeah, so that's, I'm just trying to think how much exactly that is. 9.5
Oh,
divided
you're
by.
doing the calculation. I'll let you do it. And also,
Okay, so that's 86% I got back. So
they
basically,
took
yeah,
14%.
they
So
took
it's more than
14%.
Kickstarter. It's more than most things.
Yeah,
But
which is why I tend to prefer selling through Kickstarter. To look at Josie's question, it's like actually it's selling through Kickstarter is so much easier because you get all of the sales in one go. And yes, they do end up taking about 9% because they've got 5% and then they've got extra charges on top of that, which all works out to just under 10%, really. And that is something where I'm comfortable selling there. I know what I'm doing. Plus, doing it all in one big go really is something that
and it
board
feels
game
like a
people like.
triumph. The thing about Kickstarters, it's like, okay, it's exciting. There's this thing, and you've got the comments, you've got the updates where people reply to you, and even if realistically maybe 5% of people at most are going to really engage. So to any given update that you do, it might be like 1% or 2% of your backers actually answer the question. If you're like, hey, which of these things do you prefer? And if you've
Yeah.
got 200 backers, maybe 5 of them will say, oh, we actually really prefer this one, which gives you some information, which then does mean that you can say, okay, well, out of these stickers, that's what I was going to do. I'll go with that one. Great.
Yep.
And well, the question really is, I mean, Matt said, QB says, I'm just going to call people by their titles. The next question is, which pledge manager would you prefer? GameFound, BackerKit, CrowdOx? I guess for smaller projects, price is the most important thing, which puts GameFound well ahead. But then the real question is, would you use a pledge manager at all? Because for my previous projects, I've asked people, would you like me to use a pledge manager? The advantage basically is that you can add on extra stuff from me, and yeah, that's basically the real advantage. And the downside is that it's another place that you need to go, and I'm thinking about doing this. And when I've asked people, the majority of people have asked for it to be just in the Kickstarter survey.
Yeah.
It's a little bit less hassle for the consumer. And I think I've honored that. And having add-ons allows me to do it is upselling. It's saying, hey, you like my stuff, maybe you like my old stuff. Maybe you don't have a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify monstrous noises yet. Or maybe you want one of my other Bezzy bargain bags or whatever. And I've got a certain amount of stock, and I'm actually going to check if you can actually have limited stock of. Oh, you can do. No, I'm trying to work out if I can do limited number of add-ons. Oh, yes, you can limit. Okay, cool. You can limit the number of add-ons now in Kickstarter. I was just so I could presumably say that I've got 30 copies of this game, and that's how many there will be left. And if I need to reprint them, that will be an additional bit of work. But yeah, I could sell stuff that I can no longer really sell properly, like in a bind junior or in a bind. I mean, I'm not willing to. Yeah, I could sell, like, for people who've already, like, I could frankly just be like, yeah, which stuff do you want to put in? And I can do that already via the Kickstarter. Because back in the day that you're talking about, when you had to do all the different pledge levels, for back in the day of In a Bind, it was like 1 copy, 2 copies, 4 copies, and I think it went up to 10 copies. Because back in the day, Kickstarter was like 10 copies is the most you can offer. And I
Right.
think they've kind of lessened their
Mm.
stance on that, although it might still be a rule, but no one really cares anymore. But yeah, now it's, hey, this is stuff. If you want to have one copy, you can. If you want to have 5 copies, you can. And 5 copies might be marginally more awkward, but I'm still making enough money on the 5th copy to justify, selling that separately, hopefully.
Yeah.
And yeah, the add-ons have just made it so that maybe you don't use a pledge manager. What's your opinion? Would you use a pledge manager again?
Right. So if I was doing this again, then I would probably just do essentially a bodge job through Kickstarter. So I would do an estimate, I would do approximations, and I would say, okay, well, I really want to do the shipping by weight, but it's not happening through the through Kickstarter. So I'm just going to make estimations. Some I'll lose, some I'll get a little bit more on, but I'd probably do that. And the reason is because, having spent a while looking at pledge managers, I can say without a shadow of the doubt, I hate all pledge managers. I do not want to see a pledge manager ever again, and they are just, I have not found a pledge manager which actually works properly. Now, if I can go back to that for a moment, the main reason is that I personally love spreadsheets. I am perfectly happy with my huge list of backers. I have a big spreadsheet. By the way, when I say I love spreadsheets, we are not talking pivot tables. We are not talking things which make them into a database. I hate databases. I love spreadsheets. You've got to be able to see the entire thing with, conditional formatting, and everything.
What's about like
And
multi-page spreadsheets? Is that okay when
oh
they've got
yeah,
to...
that's fine. Multi-page spreadsheets are great. So I used to work for the local government. Yes, I do. So I used to work for the local government boundary commission for England, which basically meant that I was looking at electoral registers on spreadsheets. So I am well accustomed to looking at huge, enormous spreadsheets with things, and that's just what I'm used to. But the thing about pledge managers is that they force you into a database, which is okay. I can normally find my way through. But they have their own categorization and coding. And I am particularly poor at recognizing what other people call things and where something needs to come before something else. Basically, I've got 2 things, which mean I'm not very good at database type things, particularly with these. Firstly, that unless I can see it, then I don't really understand it, which of course is a problem in the modern world. There are lots of things I don't really understand, and I've just pushed them to the back of my mind. Mobile phones. Don't really understand it, but I've just decided it's magic, and I've pushed it to the back of my mind. I'm not going to, work it out from scratch. Although, basically when I was learning to drive a car, then I had to go and look at a bicycle in order to work out how the clutch would work and go, right, okay, this size of cog, that, that's first, that, yeah. Anyway, all
Bye-bye,
yeah. So I'm a bit particular about that, which means that databases don't work hugely well. But I also just found myself going, well, they've defined such and such as this. How do I know what that means? What's a shipping model? I can kind of get the idea that it's something to do with shipping, but it turns out that a shipping model is the type of postage you're sending it by, whether it's first class or whether it's tracked or whether it's no postage at all and pick it up at a convention. And it's like, okay, so that's a shipping model. But no one ever says that. You kind of have to work it out. And I think that GameFound is by far the worst. I've spent about a week attempting to put things into GameFound. Someone from the board gaming community has very, very kindly offered to walk me through what all the things actually mean tomorrow, so I can put my stuff from the spreadsheet into GameFound, because I just cannot get it to do anything other than 0 for shipping. I've got things in different things. GameFound has, let's see, in the shipping, in the the bit you put in, it's got shipping models, shipping zones, locations, sublocations, shipping stages, shipping cost rules, and then a shipping
Are you able
calculator.
to show this screen or?
Yes, because let's see. Let me take myself back to where we are. Share.
And Manuel says, ironic that GameFound got you lost. Alex says, these days the pledge manager can also be used to gain more backers. I'm working on a GameFound late pledge project right now. And what do you mean you're working on it? Let me know what you mean. That's interesting to hear. And the whole
Yes.
notion of like late backing, it's a weird one to me. Because at what point do you increase the price? So this is a little bit behind the scenes of GameFound. And
So here's what you've got. You've got your shipping models where just where I've got here, okay, well, maybe you do it by post, maybe you pick it up from a shop, or maybe you pick it up from from Games Expo. Then you've got shipping zones, and that's fine. And in there's viewing details. Oh, I haven't done them for that yet. Let's see. I'll go back to the UK. Viewing details, and this is me actually putting in very rough ones because I wasn't quite sure. I've been to 1 kilo it's 7.5, to 2 kilo it's 9. Now actually it's not quite, it's slightly more complicated than that because ShipQuest have given us some stuff, but but you add in your weight ranges there. Let's say that it was 3 to 4 kilos, and let's just create something and say I'm going to charge £15 for that. And then you've got various locations which are around the world. I may have made everything into the EU at the moment. I'm not. Oh no, I've just added in the UK at the moment. Then you've got shipping cost rules, and there are 3 different types of rule. So I have put in one of each at the moment in order to work out how it works, and then
ultimately, without getting too down in the weeds right now, because we have been chatting for an hour, it feels like fundamentally what you're saying is that there is a lot to learn, and
there's a lot to learn, and I'm not very good at it.
You don't necessarily want to be learning all the stuff. And Alex says shipping cost rules is where the prices go.
Then what goes in the okay? See, that's the sort of thing that I might want to.
That feels very unintuitive. Shipping cost rules. That doesn't make any. I would assume that means like okay.
Yeah.
So
saying that I do have some.
So is Alex? Are you working for GameFound now? Alex says my new job involves helping people with their game launches. So, are you working for GameFound? Should Jess be speaking to you?
Should I be talking to you? Should I be complaining? Well, I wouldn't complain at you, obviously, but should I be laying my heart bare of the horrors of GameFound?
More like kind of seeking advice.
Yes. Well, I have also signed up to back a kit, which seems much more intuitive, but I'm not. But I'm still waiting for an email back for them, from them about whether it actually works or not. But anyway, the thing is that what I want is a really, really simple pledge manager. It's an independent marketing company. Okay, interesting.
Okay, yes, with Dina Ramsey.
We've so I've now got to the point with the pledge managers that I am seriously considering that the pledge manager may be me at the end of an email address with a very large spreadsheet, because I can make the very large spreadsheet tell me exactly what each person should be paying. I just put it in, and it's it's very simple, and I say well, if this then this, and if that then that, and it's all absolutely straightforward. I just can't work out where in these settings where GameFound has hidden where all the different cells should be, essentially. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting because everyone's got their own strengths, and like yourself, I'm not going to call myself a technophobe. You know, I learned how to do streaming between, um, you know, Aircon 2020 finishing on the Sunday and Tuesday when I did my first stream. So, like, you know, on Monday, I was like talking to Sally Jones. We were a bit sad that the world was going into lockdown. So we're like, hey, would you like to play a game with me on stream? And then I got to play a game with Sally Jones on stream, and then Mark Cook joined us, and then that
Yay.
became more games for the L deck, which was lovely. And but like yourself, I really hate forms. And with Google Forms, I get stressed if it's more than one page. Like some people like
Oh,
seeing
yeah.
one question at a time. I want to see all the questions and then, you know, think about all
Yes.
my answers. And the truth is, for Kickstarter, until Chris was, constantly working for me, I was, well, actually, before that, I got a bit of help with being able to print out stuff into. I can't show you a packing label because then it's got someone's address on, but you
Yep.
know, like what an address looks like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to, if I could strategically, like it says, it's got like an address here. That doesn't even give you much visual information, but before I did that, I was like just handwriting them all because it was easier for me to go through the Kickstarter and do, okay, handwrite that, put the thing in, left, handwrite that, and do that, rather than having to work out how to put it through a printer. But then I got help with putting it through a printer, and now Chris is just amazing. Does the kind of click and drop system where it's just already there, it's already prepaid, I just walk over, I don't need to stand in a queue. I can just putting it down, and everyone's good at their own stuff. And if we had to go to a pledge manager, that would be a whole new system to learn. That's probably maybe
you might end up
1
like
or 2
me,
weeks lost.
you know, banging on the walls, going saying that, it must say that, you know, GameFound is considerably harder than
Look, it depends on
BackerKit.
your, like, how big your team is, because frankly, some people, like Labyrinth is actually not a small team. Like, it is relative, like there's, and you know, Stop, Drop and Roll, Marinator of Rising, that's like 3 core people in the team. That's, I think, sure, they also have their own work, some of them, but that's like a fair number of people who can pick up the slack. In the risks and challenges of the Kickstarter that I was writing this morning, one of the things I wrote was, yeah, it's a small team. Basically, I do all the design and the illustration and writing and development, and Chris does all the technical stuff and the pre-production, and there's very little crossover in skills. We do have discussions, but frankly, there's no one to pick up the slack. If one of us gets sick, then that is going to be it. If one of us gets sick for 3 weeks, it's going to have to wait for 3 weeks. And yeah, it's obvious. And then let alone when you start getting into the medium thing where you've actually got Alley Cat Games and Inside the Box, where these aren't big companies by any means. I mean, yeah, Peter did admit that they don't have the reach to take on one of my games that I hope to be selling at least 20,000 copies a year, like a small, tiny card game. But they've got a big team. They've got like a dedicated marketing person. They've got like multiple people who can handle the things. And I'm actually looking forward. I don't want, nothing's been committed like publicly, but it's possible that when I go off to Thailand, I might be working with the same fulfillment company as Peter and kind of jumping in on their account and working incredibly closely by manual. But I hope that what I'm saying makes sense, and I hope it fundamentally, what I'm saying is, don't feel like you have to do a pledge manager just because everyone else is doing it. And when people say, oh, this is really easy, well, it's always also, it's easy for them. Because frankly, yeah, I'm going to call them out. Sorry. Jamie Stegmaier, when they said in their book, about building a crowd, Kickstarter, and they say, "Oh, everyone should write a blog." And then I kind of called them out on it when I was chatting to them on my old podcast, internet radio show even, which I think you can still find somewhere. And then I said, "Yeah, I don't think that this is fair. I've got this small bone to pick with you. I think that maybe for you it's easy to write a blog, but writing isn't easy for everyone. I mean, maybe you admit you don't want to go to conventions, but I go to conventions and different people have different strengths. And the point is that, and then Jamie did actually say, you know what, you're right. I look back at that book and some of those things I look at and I think, who was I to say this? And I was being a bit strong and forceful in my advice because, yeah, sometimes you do forget that people are different. People have different strengths. Not everyone is able to go through databases or go through forums or go through whatever in the same way that you are. And I think ultimately, sorry to force a conclusion upon this, but
no,
think
that's
about
a
your
good
own
conclusion.
strengths and do the best job that you can based on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's work out what works for the type of thing you're doing, but also for the community that you're trying to build and the community that you're working in. Because some people are very much, visual and they want to see something, and they're interested in streaming, and other people are like, no, hang on, I want to just, read something quickly. But it's also, that some people love hanging around at conventions, and but it's also working out, within your team, within your group of people who can do these various things, because we're definitely finding that, that in this particular instance, the different bits of art, fine. The formatting, the talking to the publishers, the organization, fine. The manufacturing and the financial side of it, fine. But then there's this like database hole, which is the pledge manager, and it's like, oh, we all hate it. Oh no. We'll find a way through. Like I said, I'm talking to someone tomorrow, which will be really useful, and I might even send some things to Alex as well, saying, "Hey, what about this?" So,
on the
Alex
6th,
has been warned.
It might actually be nice to have a continuation of this topic, because by then, hopefully, you'll have finished putting together the pledge manager, and I'll have at least done a good amount of the remaking of my web shop. Fingers crossed. It might not be completely relaunched with all the best pictures, but I will have paid the money by the end of the month is my goal, and then gotten stock levels of all my current games on there. So that's, I'm like, yeah, I've got 40 copies of this game, and if people want to buy, they should at least be aware of it, because there's currently literally nowhere that anyone can buy it, which feels problematic. Alex, yes, you are forewarned, 100%. At this point, I noticed that I never talked about the Bezzy Boardgame Bye-bye Bash, so I'm going to actually use the question of the day. Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way, to basically say, yes, as you may know, I am planning on leaving the UK. It's been quite a few years since I've been talking about this. I'm going to be gone by the end of next year. I'm planning some sort of board game gathering, and I want it to be as cheap as I can, but I do want to cover all the costs. I want it to be a nice thing. So some people said that they are happy to camp if it's in summer. Might have that as an option, especially if it's cheaper for people. Dave Weatherall's told me about a mansion where you've got like 56 beds inside. You've got another 50 beds outside in which are glamping, which are heated. There's heating, there's USB sockets, there's electricity, so they're not like tents. They're kind of little pods, and then you step outside of your room and immediately you're in the wilderness, in a field. But then there's like communal showers. But I guess like inside a mansion there would be communal showers, but you might have to walk outside. And then there's also space for tents which are already erected apparently, which you don't need to bring your own tents, and then there's space for like thousands of people. And that's like a lot of space. And I'm thinking like it would be really cool if I could actually have, you know, hundreds, 150 people. Like, am I this is like a bit of a gosh thing to ask. Like, am I popular enough to get like 150 people to come along to a convention in this place? And it does feel like the kind of thing that Kickstarter is made for, because if we get enough people, then great, it can go ahead. If we don't, then maybe I need to look for
something else
somewhere
will have
else.
to happen.
Or
But I think that would be really cool. Let's make it happen, Bez. I think it would be really cool if it does go ahead.
So my question is, I am thinking it'll be the earliest that I can get the date for. And so my question to you is, would you be interested in coming? And how many days long should it be? I'm thinking definitely more than just a 2-day weekend. I'm thinking like a 3 or 4 day. I don't know, like I would almost like it to be like 7 days, but then that feels like a lot to ask of people. But yeah, how many days should it be, and would you come along? And what is important to you?
So I would come along. I am always a fan of things that are shorter and sweeter, if that makes sense. I'd rather have loads packed into a long weekend rather than something where by the end of it I was thinking, oh, I kind of want to get back to work, or I want to, I'd want it to end on a high. But it's also that being much more introverted, then about 2 or 3 days is basically about as much as I can handle of being around that many people. By that point, I'd just be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't handle this many, I don't know, minds around me. So I think the perfect thing would be something that, say, started in a leisurely way on a Friday and then went on maybe to a Monday morning. Now, I may well only turn up on the Saturday morning, for example, and leave on Sunday night, or I might turn up late on Friday and then leave on Sunday night. But I think that, something like that, which was a long weekend, would probably cater to most people. But I'm just saying that there are probably a fair number of people like me who would be saying, actually, I just couldn't deal with that number of people for longer than 2 days.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would kind of have to charge everyone the same, like no matter how many nights they were coming for, because we'd still have to set those beds aside for those people, if you know what I mean. And so it's not like, I mean, yeah, like if you're like, okay, I'll come on Thursday and leave on Saturday, and someone else will take my place on Saturday, and then fair enough, you're sharing the bed, okay, you can do that. If you can sort that out yourself, then do that. I'm not going to sort that out for you. I don't want to take on extra admin work. And honestly, I was thinking about, food, because when and long weekend things like Bastion and KCON, the tradition seems to be start on late Thursday or mid-afternoon Thursday, and people are expected to turn up like Thursday night or Friday, and then Sunday afternoon it stops. And Sunday evening everyone has to go home. I do like the idea of having Monday to kind of chill out and as a sort of extra day, so it can just. But I do know a lot of people would struggle to take Monday off, because then you've got to take extra days off, which might be asking quite a bit. Finchy says, in parts, it depends on how far we have to travel, as time for travel needs to be considered too. But yes, I'm definitely up for coming 3 or 4 days. I personally prefer to start on a Thursday, so I'm taking 2 days in a row off.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're maybe it should, if we've got it from Thursday afternoon, then it could be like, arrive anytime from like 12 p.m. on Thursday, and it'll take you a few hours to get there anyway. it's not designed. It's not going to be in a location that's particularly convenient for me. It's going to be probably a little bit awkward for everyone, but if you're in Land's End or John O'Groats, then it might be particularly inconvenient for you. It will be somewhere I expect wherever it is, it will be somewhere roughly in the middle of the country, by which I include Eastern Wales and North England and Southern Scotland. So it'll be somewhere in that big region.
How easy do you think it will be to get to? Because one of the key things for a lot of people would be whether you can just get a train there. Whether you can get a train or walk, or whether you need to do complicated things like get a taxi.
I am actually going to check out the location, because it is going to be in the same place as a Gamer's Getaway. If I looked at, so the logistics, accommodation, but while we talk about that, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. Blackwell Adventure Centre. If I look on Google Maps, hopefully it should. Oh, there we go. Adventure Centre in Bromsgrove. So I am happy to look at any other places. It's just that this sounded like a nice location. And if I look at, let me close this screen because I just realised that.
The thing for some people, well, it depends whether people have got cars. Because when people are driving, then the question is, how good is the parking? Will there be lots of parking? When people are coming by train, then the question is, how easy is it to get there from the station? And my approach, and I tend to do things by train, my approach has always been, if it is less than 2 miles walk where there are pavements, then that is easy. Walking for half an hour, 40 minutes along pavements, yeah, absolutely fine. That counts as, really simple. But as soon as it's like, oh, you've got to take a taxi, it feels a little bit like, I don't know where I'm going, etc.
So it's close to Birmingham, this place. It is kind of in the middle of nowhere, which is quite nice, because then you go out and it's basically in a country park. So if you're at Birmingham New Street, you want to go to Longbridge Lane, and then you can get a bus, and then apparently there's this much walking. Let me click the button to see. Walk about 13 minutes.
Difficult. So that's difficult because you've put in 2 different types of transport. Because transferring from a train to a train is fine, but transferring from a bus to a train, somehow it just gets way more complicated there. So I'd probably still come, but it would be a black mark against it, basically. That there has to be a, because I'd be thinking of this as, okay, right, you go to, going to Longbridge is fine, but then it's like another, it gets complicated, and buses outside of London are a bit of a nightmare.
Just putting in English cities, Manchester.
I mean, different people probably have different opinions, but for me, then it's not the length of time, it's the number of changes and the number of different transport options which are used. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, it's definitely a thing, it's a possibility.
It's definitely something that I will do in some capacity. Whether it is in this venue, which would cater for 150 people, and if it's in that venue, it might actually make sense to have, okay, we have a chilled out day, and then the plans officially start the next day. Because when I ask people, So I sent people to a Google form, which is on my Facebook,
Hmm.
and I asked people what's important to you. When would you be able to come? The thing that was most important to people was having a chill out room, which slightly surprised me. But it makes sense. I mean, it's not just in your bedroom. You want to have like maybe one room where maybe just, okay, no one talks in this area, but also if we are in the middle of nowhere and it's sunny that weekend, you can go for a really long walk, which would be nice because if you need to get away from people, you can do that. And
You can, but then you've got to go back to where people are. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. Getting away from people is not an hour-long thing. So, but yeah, it's
yeah, I can
let's
sort
see.
of, yeah, I struggle. So this is all about the
Mm.
empathy for other people, and maybe I'm not as perfect on that. Well, I'm definitely not as perfect as I could be, but yeah, maybe invite someone with access to a minibus.
Oh,
Oh,
yes. I
like
mean, if there was someone who was able to, to go back and forth ferrying people, I mean, that could be a thing.
I could pay Chris to hire. I want. Are they allowed to drive a minibus? Because Chris, I mean, they don't get excited about driving on the roads, but there one thing that they actually get excited about is driving on a racetrack. But they actually do enjoy, like in a lower excitement way. They actually enjoy driving generally, and
Yeah.
so I think. I mean, I might ask. I don't want to volunteer their time, but also I think that I will definitely need some help, like with the
We
food,
need some
whatever it
admin.
is. What I would ideally want is, okay, some people you are allowed to get food yourself. If you want to get parts of the food and pay so much, and we will have some sort of vague vegan menu
Mhm.
with some stews and stuff. I don't know, like maybe some people who are working, like it might be people who aren't able to pay and they do some labor in exchange for the accommodation and whatnot, or it might just be
Mm.
people who are like, yeah, you know what, I wouldn't mind cooking for one of the evenings. And
150 people is quite vegan menu. Yeah. Say it was 150 people. That's quite a lot
yeah,
to
you need a
cater
team
for.
for that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're catering for 50 people, then you need something like 5 people doing each of those meals.
Mm-mm-mm.
I'm just thinking, because I've done a fair number. I mean, not recently, but
That's
I've done a
actually a
fair
fair
number
point.
of weekends away with groups of about 50.
At which point, yeah,
50 to
if
70 kind of. In fact, yeah, it was normally more than 50. It was definitely fewer than 100, but it was more than 50. And so
but if
if
we
because you've got
say
like
that
70.
you want almost 10% of the people to be involved in the cooking, which does make sense
Yeah.
because I could, you know, I could imagine me and one other person cooking for 20, but
Mm.
yeah, like,
You
yeah,
need
it's
some
definitely.
really
So
big
the
big
question,
pans as
so
well.
then the question becomes whether it does actually just make sense to get, a big delivery to come over with a whole. It might be a bit more boring, but a lot of meal deals from Tesco or whatever. I don't know if that still works if you get a delivery.
So so
Like,
I'm
if
just
could
trying
we
to
get
think. Yeah.
150 sandwich meal deals?
Well, if you're doing things like, so basically dinner or hot food is the issue, because if you're
Mm-mm.
doing, if you're doing sort of, sandwichy type lunch, then basically you just say, okay, here are a whole load of loaves of bread. Here's a lot of cheese, and you just set somebody to grating cheese into bowls or whatever for
Mm-mm.
for ages, or you've just got like, right, here's all the cheese, here's all the stuff, and actually that is basically, you just need some people sort of laying out a buffet spread essentially, because if it's cold, sandwichy type food, then it doesn't take that much preparation. It's more just, laying it out and, maybe chopping up salad or whatever, so there's no cooking involved. The issue is when you're cooking something, and you're sort of like, okay, right, if you're making soup, the things we generally made for 70 odd people were, we made a lot of pasta, we made a lot of soup, a lot of curries, and you just need really, really big pots for those. Plus also there, when you're doing joint food, my serious recommendation would be not to have any meat. Firstly, because
Yeah,
of the
absolutely.
price, but also because of various dietary requirements. It's just easier to say, hey, it's all vegetarian, possibly vegan, and yeah, you're just all
Yeah, I
getting
mean,
chickpea curry.
Alex makes a really Aquasolus makes a really good point at 150. Maybe
Mhm.
it is like enough to ask for some sort of look into someone whose job it is to do that sort of thing, and say, okay, we will pay you a certain amount to make 150 meals, and then
I mean, that could
and
work.
some of the things from when I think back to Aircon, like some of those stands, like they were more kind of expensive, but they weren't outrageous. And I think, my concern is like, can I make it still financially accessible for people? But the truth is that getting there is going to be a cost no matter what.
Yeah.
And people are going to have to take time off work because it's at least going to be 4 days, so 2 days off work. And that feels like a reasonable thing to do. Maybe Sunday nights as well. So if people want to take Monday off, they can, but Monday's just kind of time to go home in a more relaxed manner. That might be a good way to do it. And a few people did say, I really, really, really want a strict schedule. And which makes sense. Like, they don't need to have like every minute this is what's going to happen, but they want to know that, at least a month ahead of time, this is what to expect on this day. And like, we will probably spend about 12 minutes doing what I'm going to call an extended elbow dance with literally everyone. So literally everyone, it will take about 12 minutes to do that. Foot, jazz hands. To do that about 100 times with the time to move around, I estimate will be about 12, 13 minutes. So
Excellent.
potentially we might, it's just a quick way to say, hello, I'm Bez. And you'd say, hello, I'm Jess, while we're doing that, and then move on to the next person. That's literally all you've got time to say.
So there'd be two circles, one going one way and one going the other way.
No, if you've got two circles, then people on the same circle never interact.
That's very true, but yeah.
It's a round robin. So one person stays put, everyone else moves one space round. I'll explain it at the time. Everyone will elbow dance
sounds
with
like it's going to
else.
take an awful lot of time.
Well, about 13 minutes for 100 people.
Okay, we'll work it out. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine.
That sounds inefficient.
See, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Will we play?
Where's the inefficiency?
Well, because you've got to do it for each person.
Oh, it's
decreasing,
the issue
and
that
then
some people don't want to. That some people are going to get really tired. Is that the issue?
Yeah, no, it's that if you've got one person staying put, then that's one person going around a circle. Hey, Alex has just said exactly the same thing.
No.
Yes. It is. If you've got one person, whereas if you've got two concentric circles, then they only get 50% of it.
So
yeah, we want little diagrams.
Got, these 6 people, right? Then so these 2 people. Ignore this hand. These two people, and these 2 people are kind of in pairs. and then this person stays put, and then it goes like that. So everyone moves one along. Then now these two people, and these two people, and now everyone moves. So now these two people, and these two people, and
You've
then
got to have more than one person moving to break all the pairs up. Then
everyone's
that could be
moving
interesting.
except for one person. That is mathematically the way to have. That is mathematically the way to make sure everyone interacts with everyone.
But the other pairs, if they just,
But you aren't pairs, because one person, after you meet, one person will go this way, one person will go this way.
And then what's left in the middle?
Well, the person who was here will come here.
So it is a concentric circle, but
like two lines.
Broken one.
It's kind of like two lines, but then at the end you wrap around, if that makes sense.
Oh, so okay.
Meld into each other.
Okay, it's one circle which has been twisted. So it's basically two concentric circles, but there's a point at which you stop being the outer circle and you become the inner circle.
Yeah, it's kind of like one circle which is flattened.
Yeah.
So the one circle is kind of like two lines it's kind of like a really long oval with, yeah.
Okay, we'll make it work. Will there be other things like non-competitive musical chairs?
There will be a brand new game. There will be like
a caterpillar track.
There will be. It's like a caterpillar track. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
It's like
imagine
a caterpillar track, but one person stays put. If there's people who are struggling with mobility, then we will make exceptions for them. If people are really tired, then they can just like do an elbow and
be fine.
Maybe we can have like some sorts of. I'll work out. I've got like a year to work it out. If someone's tired after 5 minutes, they can put on a hat to say, or something. I don't want to do too much movement. They can just if you're feeling energetic, put up your elbow. If you're feeling less energetic, just start with the wave, and that's all you do. We could say that. Yeah. So. And if you're feeling more energetic and the other person's feeling less energetic, you can do more moving. Because if I were to go boom, boom, and then I bring my leg right next to you, you could basically stay put and you don't have to do anything because I'm just doing all the work for both of us. But anyway, there will be games, there will be LARPs, there will be 2 p.m. events, which will be the craziest 2 p.m. events I've ever done. Like at Tabletop Scotland, just for the record, I'm going to increase it's going to go up to the next level. So like Tabletop Scotland, I think I talked about this last time, there might be drawing involved, but then things will feed into other things. I'm super excited about it. Anyway,
drawing on people?
Not on people, on cards. But I think I've already said too much. The drawing will be on cards, it will be all consensual. But anyway, the big Bezzy Boardgame Bye-bye Bash, there will be like mega party games, as I've called them, like games that can have hundreds of people, but it's less than 5 minutes of explanation, and you play it for maybe like 10 minutes. And then we'll play a few of those, and there'll be like a big long LARP. There'll be different events. There'll be like, I might even get someone to do stuff like sword swinging, depending on what there is, because I know people who are like yeah, I could also definitely get stuff like there will be opportunities to arrange games that aren't designed by me, and there will be some like I might get do a final rendition of the mega LARP that I was working on for about 50 people, which we could take even bigger. There will be lots going on. It will be kind of like a mini convention of games and stuff, and I think we probably need about 70 people to make it happen. Finchy says, I'm happy to bring my fire stuff. Brilliant. I know other people who can do fire dancing. And Timmy, hello, it is lovely to see you. But yeah, what I'm up to, I am going to post some stuff. Just send it to the thing. I should have done it. I'm going to see Kathleen Mercury. I'm really excited to chat to Kathleen Mercury, teacher and designer, and are over in the UK, and we're going to hang out, maybe in the park, maybe have a bit to sweet. Maybe walk around, maybe talk, maybe discuss games, maybe we'll definitely play some games. I don't know which games we'll play yet, but I'll ask after this. But wow, Timmy went to war with a massive spoder tonight. I have no idea what a spoder is, but I hope that is that a gaming thing? But I hope you're generally well. What are you up to, Jessica Metheringham?
What am I up to right now? Oh, I am.
Want to share? Then we promise that we care.
I have got various meetings in about political stuff this afternoon, and then I am going to be uploading some things to probably some to Tabletop Simulator and probably some to Screentop as well, because I'm not quite sure what platform I'm using at the moment. Basically there are still some people who like using Tabletop Simulator, but I personally prefer Screentop for some things. So yeah, I'm going to be doing some interesting things there.
Awesome. So keep on working on those games and keep on making stuff. So and a spoder. I'm still not sure what spoder is from your comment to me. Is it some sort of mushroom, 3 inches wide on the wall? Saw it when I got home. Oh, spider. Ah, spider. Yep, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, typo. Okay, it was 3 inches wide and was on the wall. Okay, yes, got it. So, to recap and wrap up before we finish up, I think we talked a lot about shops, which the point is we're excited to make games, or going to keep making games, going to sell stuff, and it's important about the visuals of those games in the shop, and I've got to think about that. We said that maybe I want to have some colours, some beetroot, some hands, maybe a bit of a table in those photographs, but that's a wee bit down the line. The main thing is also, more urgently, Jess Metheringham has to do the Pledge Manager, which is just an ongoing battle. And maybe by the time you finish this, you'll feel differently. Maybe you'll feel like, yeah, you know what, I've done the bulk of the work, I could do this again. But maybe you won't. Maybe you'll still feel the same way that you do right now, which is, yeah, I would just do it with Kickstarter, lose money on some, gain more money on some. Yeah, we'll do this. And I think everyone has different strengths. Do what is important to you. We also touched upon my big Bezzy Boardgame Bye-bye Bash. Don't need a better name for that. Feels like I need something short enough to be a hashtag. But if you want to check me out, I'm Stuff by Bez in all the places. Jess, where would you like to be found?
Generally on Twitter. Twitter is the best place for me, and come to Descent Games. So I'm Descent Games. Come and hang out on Twitter. But you could also go to www.librarylabyrinth for Library Labyrinth, the most recent one, or indeed www.descentgames.com, and that'll tell you the stuff I've been doing most recently. So yeah, come and say hi. Mainly on Twitter.
And Aquasolus suggests BezCon, which I will check if no one else has used that. Then, yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing. And yeah, if you want to check out my future things, tomorrow I am going to chat with Naomi Robinson about arts and games. Friday will be a short thing. Saturday, Sunday will be some unboxing and maybe a solo game of something. Maybe I'll try out Dice Theme Park. Let's try that. And in any case, thank you everyone. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Thank you for all the questions. To those who are here, those who have had to leave, and those who are lurking. And if you want to ask a question on the Facebook or YouTube after the fact, I do always reply to all the questions. If all the respectful questions, I should say, which the vast majority of them are respectful. And yeah, on Twitter there sometimes is a small issue with replies not always coming through, but for now, thank you so much, Jess. It has been a delight to chat. Thank you for another lovely chat. It has gone on a bit longer than expected. Let's aim for half an hour in future, and then if we go to an hour, it'll be okay, but we'll aim for half an hour.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's keep it smaller next time, Cool. Okay. I'll see you soon,
Oh,
though.
bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone. Bye, bye, Timmy. Bye, bye, Finchy. Bye, bye, Aquasilus. Bye, bye.
Bye.